What TV Liberia, the nation's #1. We broadcast to you news, sports, advertisement, and live event for your satisfaction.
Liberia. Want to deeply apologize for the big delay in starting this process. We're expecting some dignitaries. I'm the Director of Digital Media for African Bar Association. I'm here to quickly drive us through the activities of the African Bar from 2017 to now. The journey so far, what we have been up to with your support and everything. We all know that in 2017 we had the annual African Bar Conference in Nigeria, specifically Port Harcourt. We had in attendance the former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete, and of course the conference was hosted by, so the slide is just going to be playing, but I mean it's the same thing I'm saying is going to be appearing there, but let me just quickly drive us through that. So we had Dr. Libraki, Vice President, African Bar, North Africa. It was hosted by the Governor of River State, like I said, His Excellency Weekend. And then in 2018 we had the Nairobi conference, in Kenya. Had in attendance Deputy material, everything is going to be transmitted to soft copies to be given to everyone. Okay, so let me just quickly start off registration. 2017 we had the annual African Bar Conference in Nigeria. In 2018 we had it in Nairobi, Kenya. And then after that, there was an official visit of the African Bar President, Hannibal Waifo, to Liberia. And then we had a leadership retreat in Cairo, Egypt, where we discussed matters that are significant in moving Africa forward. In Egypt, there was a courtesy visit to the Chief Justice of Egypt. And then I want to announce to us that the African Bar is now a member of the World Privacy Rules Alliance. A round of applause for that. And dinner was held in London, United Kingdom, to that effect. Now, we are aware of the trial of the Catalan leaders in Spain. And the African bar was recognized as the first in Africa. And to that effect, thank you, the president of the African bar was invited to witness the trial process, which was supposed to have a strict observance of the fundamental rules of justice. That trial was held in Barcelona, Spain. Organized the annual accountability colloquium in Malawi a few months ago, and the president was invited and he gave a keynote speech. He gave an in-depth analysis on security in Africa and issues that need urgent concern. So fast forward, the African Bar Executive Council meeting was held early this year in Nigeria, and in attendance were members of the African Bar Executive Council. Various courtesy visits were done, which includes the visit to the Executive Governor of Edo State. We had a courtesy visit as well to the University of Benin, the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Nigeria, and of course the Nigerian Army. You know, part of the basic messages of the African Bar is to entrench the basic tenets of the United Nations, which is Sustainable Development Goals. You know, as we all know, we have to promote the SDGs. And in furtherance of that, the African Bar recognized that traditional rulers play a vital role in promoting peace and sustainable societies. So the bar paid a visit to the high chief in Nigeria, the Esaba of Benin. Also, to further promote Goal 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions, the African Bar recognized in as much as parties are in disputes during war and all of that, there is a need to observe strict rules of warfare, rules of engagement, as it's been said. So to promote that, the African Bar paid a courtesy visit to the Nigerian Army, and we were welcomed by the Chief of Army Staff, and by the grace of God, the Nigerian Army is here present. A round of applause for yourself. So, in moving ahead, also the U.S. African organized the African Military Law Forum. Now, the African Military Law Forum is a forum of, like I said, African military lawyers. You know, as the African Bar was in attendance. And in that event, there was an election of the Executive Council members, and the Nigerian chairman of the African Bar Armed Forces and Security Agents Committee, Major General Yusuf Shalangwa, was unanimously elected chairman of the African Military Council. So, gentlemen and ladies, these have been the activities of the African Bar for the past 2 years, and we want to do more. We need your help. We need your cooperation. We want to appreciate everyone that has signed up to this conference. Whether you like it or not, at the end of this conference, matters that are salient to the development of African legal system, will emerge. So I want to quickly introduce us to the African bar list. Can I have the slide for the African bar list, please? So the African bar list is simply a directory of African lawyers. As a member of African Bar Association, we are launching the African bar list. So what are the benefits of being on the African bar list? First of all, the African bar list is going to be listed, like I said, it's a directory of African lawyers. It's going to be listed on the website. And eventually, we're going to have a hard copy publication of that list. So, you might ask me, what are the benefits of being on the African bar list? Well, like I said, get listed on the African bar list directly. You have international networking opportunities and business dealings. You become an ABBA verified lawyer. And the moment you are verified, you're going to be given a verified badge of the African bar. It's a thing of honor. We encourage all of us to sign up. So for those who are interested in signing up for the African bar list, kindly come to the ABBA registration unit and we'll attend to you. Thank you very much and welcome to the 2019 African Bar Conference. Thank you. Please, I'll appreciate if we will put our phones on silent or on vibration to avoid distraction. Please, endeavor to have your phones on silent. On arrival, please, we will appreciate if you can stand up to welcome the Vice President of Liberia.
The opening section of the 2019 Conference of the African Bar Association, AFBA for short, convening in the city of Monrovia, Republic of Liberia. Very shortly, we'll have a procession led by the Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, the President of the African Bar Association, the President of the Liberian Bar Association, the Justice acting for the Chief Justice or Honor Jimzetta Wolukoli, and an array of other jurists and guests of the 2019 AFBA Conference. The audience to kindly rise. That will be followed by the playing of the national anthem of the Republic of Liberia. For the AFBA 2019 conference, and that will be followed to announce the arrival of Her Excellency the Vice President.
Now, okay. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor to announce Chief Dr. Joel Howard Taylor, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia.
President of the African Bar Association, followed by the Attorney General, Madam Justice Olokoli, the President of the Liberian Bar Association, the keynote speaker for today, Karim Khan. At this time, we now have the playing of the national anthem of the Republic of Liberia. Conference tackling contemporary issues facing the African continent, how lawyers can drive a renaissance. At this stage, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, we now invite Councillor J. Bima Lassana, Chairperson of the Local Organizing Committee for the ABBA 2019 conference, who will now give us the welcome remark. Councillor Lassana.
Madame la Vice-Présidente de la République du Liberia, Dr. Chief Joel Howard-Taylor, le Président du Barreau africain, Monsieur Manamba Ouafo, Justice associé, son honneur,
James Eto Olokoli, the honorable guest speaker,
l'orateur,
Barry Khan, the Minister of Justice for the Republic of Liberia, and Attorney General, Councillor Frank Musadin, the Honorable Senior Vice President of ABBA,
Vice President de l'ABBA,
the Doyen of the Diplomatic Corps, government officials here present,
membres du gouvernement présents ici,
foreign guests and delegates,
les délégués,
members of the legal profession also present here,
la profession légale présente ici,
ladies and gentlemen.
mesdames et messieurs.
On behalf
Au nom
of the local organizing committee
du comité local d'organisation
of the African Bar Association
ABBA,
Annual Conference 2019,
conférence de 2019,
holding in the state of Monrovia, Liberia,
lieu ici à Monrovia,
under the theme
sur le thème
Tackling
comment
Contemporary
aborder
Issues
les questions contemporaines
Facing the African Continent.
parce que c'est le tour du continent africain.
How can lawyers drive a
Comment
renaissance?
les avocats peuvent-ils mener
We are very honored
Nous sommes très honorés
and gratified
et
to
gratifiés
have this stellar event
pour cet événement
of the Umbrella Organization of Lawyers
une organisation
on the African continent stage
sur le continent africain
in our beloved country.
dans notre pays.
For this honor
Pour cet honneur
so generously bestowed
qui
by our distinguished colleagues,
fait par les collègues distingués,
we thank the Almighty God
remercions
for the selection of our country, Liberia, from among many others
parmi tous
that equally
les autres
who have cherished playing host
qui également
to
organisé
such
cet
a huge
événement.
continental gatherings of lawyers. Again, we say
Une
bravo
fois encore, nous disons bravo
to our colleague of
à
ABBA
tous nos collègues d'ABBA
for selecting me in particular
pour
to
avoir
chair
laissé
the LOC, Local Organization Committee.
présider cette
The annual conference of lawyers,
cette comité
ABBA, brings together lawyers, policy makers,
amène des avocats,
political leaders,
des décideurs,
politicians,
des gens
business
politiques,
executives,
des hommes
and
d'affaires,
professionals, and stakeholders in other endeavors
parties prenantes
from all walks of life
de tout,
to deliberate issues
partout dans le monde,
of concern to and affecting the continent of Africa.
affecte le continent africain.
For the Liberian National Bar Association,
National
the oldest bar of independent countries on the continent, and which has been in Africa, it is a pride to host this event.
fierté d'organiser
The local organizing committee was initially set up
ce comité d'organisation
to work along
a été établi
with ABBA
avec ABBA
and the NNBA to undertake the task
pour
of ensuring the hosting
d'assurer
of commissioner workshop on the theme Rules of Engagement in Asymmetric Warfare and Security Operations,
et des opérations
need for compliance with international law.
besoin de
Whilst planned were afoot in this wise endeavor,
cette
a major unfortunate event
un événement
transpired by way of the sudden collapse of efforts to hold the annual conference in Cairo, Egypt.
avant de marcher la
At this point,
de cette conférence
the Executive Council of ABBA,
le conseil exécutif
even not only brilliant,
d'ABBA
but
décidé
also expedient and cost efficient
expédient
to collapse the workshop
d'organiser
into the annual conference and hold both in Monrovia, Liberia,
tous les deux
with the former being a one-day subset event of the latter. Thus, ABBA requested,
un événement d'un journée donc
and the NNBA pleasantly and without minimal hesitation
sans
accepted
hésiter
what has now become an expanded mandate.
qui est ce que nous faisons
Inspired by the desire to be a part of history,
par le désir
the LOC
le
set
désir
to
de
work
faire partie de l'histoire
with unimaginable glee
avec
and enthusiasm accommodating our being here today.
qui
The LOC has shown you
aujourd'hui
that the liberation of grave issues of concerns affecting the continent
qui affecte le
expected to be carried out for the next 4 days will be held in the usual hospitable climate characteristics of Liberia.
tenir les caractéristiques
During the non-business hour of the conference, We encourage you to explore and suffer with total abandon the relaxing atmosphere of Monrovia and its environs, including, in particular, the conference centers, the address of which shall be made available to you soonest. On behalf of the local organizing committee, the Liberian National Bar Association, and the African Bar Association, we want to express our heartfelt thanks and commendation to the President of the Republic of Liberia, Dr. George Manewia, for accepting our invitation to attend and declare open this conference, who is now being represented by our Honorable Vice President, Chief Joe Taylor, and the government of Liberia for national support and public operations. The local committee to carry out this Herculean task on a short notice. We are very proud to commend private business horses, which in the wake of the prevailing difficult economic conditions makes contributions towards the successful hosting of the conference. Our commendation also goes to the Chief Justice and the Associate Justices of the Honorable Supreme Court of Liberia, the National Trial Justice Association of Liberia. Special commendation to our advisors and lawyers, some of the latter who, though not members of the committee, also made valuable their services to ensure the success of the conference. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome all delegates, participants, and well-wishers to the 2019 annual conference of the African Bar Association, now holding in Monrovia, the capital of Liberia. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Madam Vice President, Mrs. Joel Howard Taylor, Her Honor, Senior Associate Justice James Edward Collie, the President of the African Bar Association, the Doyen of the Diplomatic Corps, Monsieur le Doyen du Corps Diplomatique, Honorable Minister of Justice, the Senior Vice President of the Bar Association, the African Bar Association, other officials of the Governing Council of the African Bar Association, Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, Ministers of Government present, the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Liberia,
Monsieur le chef d'état-major de l'armée,
our resource persons and speakers, Honorable Karen Khan, my own friend, a distinguished keynote speaker at this occasion, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the members of the National Executive Committee and the entire membership of the Liberian National Bar Association, we welcome the President and members of the Governing Council of the African Bar Association, all members of the African Bar Association, the keynote speaker and resource persons, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen who have made the decision to attend both the annual conference of the African Bar Association and its training workshop from October 21 to 24, 2019. Since its formation in 1907, this is the first time that the Liberian National Bar Association is hosting such international events for the sharing of the knowledge on a very important subject matter facing the continent. This conference is being held under the general theme, Tackling Contemporary Issues Facing the African Continent, How Lawyers Can Drive a Renaissance.
Notre objectif principal, c'est
The struggle of the African people against colonial and military rules was for them to establish democracy as a foundation for the development of Africa.
parce que nous savons que
Although a little bit of progress has been made in the holding of free and fair elections,
dans nos pays respectifs,
not much have been achieved in the areas of respect for human rights and the rule of law in most parts of Africa.
nous sommes en train de travailler dessus.
For example, the lack of tolerance of the opposing views of citizens who are not part of the government in power by the citizens who occupy offices in the government in power,
Faire en sorte que,
even though they are equal citizens of the same state, tend to deny those in power the alternative views they need to affirm their actions or adjust them for the common good.
more time to the national for that very splendid performance. At this stage, we have the pleasure to call Chancellor Frank Musa Dane, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, who will deliver his remarks.
Excellency Anthony Alo Howard Taylor, Republic of Liberia, the most senior Associate Justice at Wolofoli, Representative Justice, President of the African Bar, other Associate Justices, President, members of the diplomatic Council of Court, distinguished guest speaker, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, having done some of it, permit me to stand on existing protocols as pronounced by the President of the Liberian National Bar Association.
Président du Barreau National du Liberia,
on behalf of the Ministry of Justice,
au nom du ministère de la Justice,
and all prosecuting attorneys,
tous les avocats
throughout the length and breadth of the Republic,
au travers du Liberia,
let me welcome you to
permettez-moi de
Liberia.
vous l'accueillir ici au Liberia.
We are gratified by the selection of
Gratifiés par
Liberia
la sélection du Liberia
to host this conference,
pour accueillir cette conférence.
though we are informed by default.
Si nous sommes informés par défaut,
Those who believe in the hand of fate will say it was always meant to be.
dirons qu'il
We express our thanks and gratitude to the African Bar Association for this decision.
le bar africain pour cette décision.
We fully identify
Nous
with the objectives of the organization
identifions pleinement avec
and
les
note the
objectifs
great
de
role it
l'organisation
plays
et le rôle que
in enhancing the rule of law
dans l'avancement de
Africa
l'état de droit en Afrique,
and assisting to provide our people access to justice.
l'accès à la justice.
I woke up this morning very
Je me
excited,
suis réveillé ce matin très
for I asked myself,
et je me suis demandé
what better place is there to be on this day
un jour tel que celui-ci
than among renowned
où peut être
tourists from all over Africa.
en Afrique où les gens partout en Afrique se réunissent.
We can only applaud the wealth of legal knowledge
Donc,
assembled in this room.
le mot assemblée de ces
Short of political dialogue, the court
dialogue
remains
politique,
the only authoritative
la Cour
forum
reste le seul
for the resolution of
forum
conflicts and
autoritatif pour la
disputes.
résolution des conflits.
If we are to end fragility and sustain the peace in Africa, all must recognize and accept
Tout
the indispensable role.
accepter le rôle
of the
indispensable de la Cour.
This has been excellently demonstrated
Ceci a été
in election matters in various African countries,
suffisamment
including Liberia,
y compris le Liberia,
Kenya,
Kenya,
Nigeria,
Nigeria
and Ghana.
et Ouganda.
Lawyers, as officers,
Sont des
and arms of the court
sont des
must be forthcoming in assisting the court to render justice.
doivent aider la Cour à rendre
Where advisable, winning at all costs must be subordinated
tout prix
to leaving party litigants
subordonné tout
less acrimonious and capable of peaceful existence.
capable donc de le faire.
Liberia has a common law system,
Liberia a un
also
système
called Anglo-American law.
américain.
The legacy of colonialism left us with different systems of law.
Introduit à ce
Discussions at Uniting Africa
always evolve around the United States of Africa with common currency, common defense, and common foreign policy. The economic community of West African states recently adopted the ECO as a common currency. It is time to begin to examine our various legal systems with the aim of either adopting one legal system, evolving a common legal system, or reducing to the minimum the differences. The concept of regional codes, like the ECOWAS movement, represents a significant stride in this direction. We wish the conferees success in the deliberations that will ensue over the next 2 days. And we hope that you will find Liberia a home away from home. We listen to the report of the President of the African Bar. We are pleased to inform our colleagues from all over Africa and from the African Bar Association that there is no lawyer in jail in Liberia. We are committed to the protection of lawyers and advocates, and we appreciate the role we have to play in our legal system. Thank you very much.
We have the pleasure to invite Madam Justice Kimseta Howard Wolikoli, representing the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who will now deliver a special message.
Madam Joel Howard Taylor, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, President of the Liberian National Bar Association, President of the African Bar, our keynote speaker, Mr. Karam Khan, QC, distinguished members of the legal profession, military and security agencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I bring greetings on behalf of the Chief Justice of Liberia, His Honor Francis S. Copper Sr., the Associate Justices, and the entire judiciary to members and participants of this 2019 annual conference of the African Bar Association. As the Chief Justice stated at the opening of the term of the Supreme Court, he had a pending trip to Accra, Ghana, to attend an international conference on economic integration organized by the ECOWAS Community Court from October 21 to 23, 2019. So regrettably, he could not be here today. And so he designated me to represent him at this conference. It is good that lawyers and other distinguished personnel from across our continent can meet here in Monrovia to deliberate under the theme tackling contemporary issues facing the African continent. How lawyers can drive a renaissance. As we are aware,
Comme nous le savons,
our continent, Africa, has been faced with a plethora of challenges
face de brutalité
that have denied
qui nous ont
vast majority of its people
empêché d'avoir
a fair share of the total mass of wealth that nature has bequeathed unto the continent and its people.
et son peuple.
These diabolical challenges
Ces défis diaboliques, donc,
confronting the continent are not hitting.
face duquel se retrouve le continent,
They are so glaring,
sont très
manifesting themselves
visibles.
in nearly
Ils se manifestent
all
presque
aspects
tous
and sectors of
tous
life
les secteurs
on the continents,
de la vie sur le continent.
accounting for the snail pace of growth and development of most parts of our continents.
La lenteur du développement sur le continent.
As a people,
En tant que peuple,
not only are we fully in
non seulement
the know of these challenges
sommes-nous
or short of knowledge
ne sommes pas
in terms of deciphering effective remedies to curb these persisting
pour
challenges.
éviter, pour faire face à ces défis.
I am firmly of the view that
Je suis de l'opinion
Africa's major setback has been
que la raison pour
and remains
la
our
répression de
failure
l'Afrique a toujours été
and
notre
neglect
échec.
to commit ourselves to
De
doing
nous engager
what it
à
takes
faire ce qu'il
to
faut.
rid the continent of the challenges
Donc,
that keep operating to its
débarrasser le
peril.
pays de défis qui continuent à le terrasser.
Some of the endemic contemporary issues that Africa is faced with include corruption
la corruption,
and its derivatives such as poverty,
la pauvreté, donc,
poor health care,
mauvaise
mass
santé,
illiteracy,
donc,
violation of human rights,
violation des
environmental
droits
challenges
de l'homme,
caused by climate change and UN
problèmes
agencies,
environnementaux causés par le changement climatique,
transnational crimes such as drug
crimes transnationaux,
trafficking,
c'est-à-dire le trafic de drogue,
kidnapping,
kidnapping,
human slavery, counterfeiting, smuggling, and other criminal
et
activities.
d'autres activités criminelles.
The past couple of decades
Il y a
have
quelques
witnessed the
décennies,
establishment of regional
on a vu l'établissement
national security and law enforcement initiatives across the continent to ensure effective transnational collaboration in combating crimes.
pour lutter contre les crimes.
In the ECOWAS era,
Dans la zone
there is the West African Police Chief Committee, WAPO,
WAPO,
created 201 by the ECOWAS heads of
créé
states
en
and governments,
2001 par la CEDEAO,
with the principal objective of creating a forum
l'objectif principal de ce forum donc,
that will strengthen fights against transnational crime,
des crimes transfrontaliers,
facilitate the development of a regional strategy against
faciliter le
crime,
développement d'une stratégie
trends through proper coordination,
pour la coordination
and to encourage joint activities of members,
activités conjointes
city police forces in the fight against criminality. There are other organizations in other parts of West Africa that we could mention. To tackle effectively the grave issues of concern to Africa, collective effort is the most effective approach. And in so doing, quality expertise from diverse professional backgrounds is indispensable. The superior critical thinking skills that lawyers have to their credit and the roles as advocates of justice and the rule of law, and as drivers of diverse problem-solving mechanisms, make lawyers a compelling necessity to lead and they ought to lead in promoting justice and integrity, strengthening the integrity and capacity of criminal justice system, raising awareness and informing and influencing law-making processes at all levels. Lawyers have the greatest share of responsibility because nothing substantive is tenable without the erecting of appropriate and enabling legal regimes. That alone makes lawyers across the continents the situated professionals in this endeavor. I would like you at this conference as lawyers to deliberate and study on how you can commit to helping our continent deal with these issues. Because for me, an effective comeback of these issues relies on adherence to the rule of law. And you as lawyer could commit to rebranding the continent of Africa by committing to pursue the laws relevant to dealing with these issues. You African lawyers must commit yourself to the responsibility enumerated herein in your respective jurisdictions or even beyond, with an uncompromising sense of purpose, passion, loyalty, and conviction, with the combined commitment and courage of lawyers, judges, and other key actors. A renewed and vibrant fight can be successfully mounted against the many contemporary issues plaguing the continent of Africa. So I wish you a meaningful deliberation. Thank you.
Colleague, just continue the goodwill messages, but we'd like to make a quick announcement. There will be lunch, and lunch tickets will be distributed to delegates. Also, delegates are informed that tonight at 7 p.m. will be the African President's Dinner. We'll be here in this complex in the smaller aula, the smaller hall. Christensen of the United States Armed Forces African Command. Very brief remarks. Thank you.
Madam Vice President Taylor, Honorable Attorney General, distinguished bar presidents, honorable justices, honorable members of Parliament, other distinguished officials, general officers, members of the African Bar Association, fellow legal professionals, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of AFRICOM, I want to thank the African Bar Association for inviting us to this significant and important conference. The agenda is incredible. I give a special thanks to Liberia for hosting the event and providing such incredible hospitality. Rule of law and respect for human rights are hallmarks of peace and stability. This professional conference will further those efforts. I am delighted to be here
Je suis content d'être ici donc,
and further pleased
et je suis davantage
that AFRICOM has been invited to present on the military justice
plaisir
system
de présenter sur le
and on
système
best practices for evidence collection
fichier
in military operations.
et les opérations militaires.
I offer goodwill to all, and I look forward to the conference discussions with
Je
colleagues
m'attends à voir
who have a shared interest in promoting justice
un partage intéressant sur
Fairness.
la question de la justice
and a respect for human rights.
et le respect pour les droits humains.
Thank you so much. We continue. We have word that the president of the Sierra Leone Bar Association is here. If you are here, kindly come over and give your remark.
Est-ce qu'il peut venir nous
If you are here, kindly come over.
My president could not be here because of an emergency family matter, so he asked me to step in.
problème familial?
I bring you greetings from the executive and the general membership of the Sierra Leone Bar Association. We feel particularly honored to be given this opportunity to convey a goodwill statement at this year's conference. Sierra Leone, as the oldest bar association in the sub-Saharan West Africa, has had a long and cherished history with the African Bar Association. This history encapsulates the rebirth of the African Bar Association and the establishment of the Sierra Leone Forum of the African Bar Association. Over the years, that relationship between Sierra Leone Bar Association and the African Bar Association has been nurtured and deepened by a shared commitment to maintain the integrity of the legal profession, advocate for adherence to the rule of law, encourage democratic accountability, and provide access to justice. Through this shared commitment, Sierra Leone is also proud to have distinguished lawyers who are serving the AFBAR in various capacities, and we are committed to take up more responsibilities as and when AFBAR deems necessary. As the Vice President of the newly elected executive, I was reliably informed that Sierra Leone had committed to host the Legal Institute of Leadership and Human Rights, and as an incoming executive, we wish to register our support for such a brilliant project and assure the African Bar Association that we will engage the government of Sierra Leone and other stakeholders to ensure that we fulfill that commitment. Learned colleagues, this 2019 conference provides us a platform as African lawyers to re-examine ourselves in the face of challenges confronting our continent. It is not enough to look at ourselves as the rightest minds when women and girls who are being raped or sexually violated have no access to justice, when national constitutions are being violated and manipulated by heads of states with deafening silence, when politicians abuse their powers with impunity, when corruption becomes a way of life for those in authority, when our governments fail to reform our laws, when investors are not protected because of weak legal regimes, and young entrepreneurs do not have access to finance, when the freedom of press is constantly under threat, when our members of parliament fail to represent the interests of their constituents, when citizens fail to hold our governments to account for their promises, when our children do not have access to quality education, when citizens do not have access to quality health care, when our societies discriminate against persons with disability, when ordinary people do not have confidence in our justice systems, and the independence of the judiciary is hijacked, and when state security forces and state institutions are constantly manipulated to suppress the opposition in a democracy. We as lawyers must speak out, confront these challenges and shine light on them with courage and fearlessness. Distinguished guests, I am hopeful that the theme for this conference, tackling contemporary issues facing the African continent, how can lawyers drive a renaissance, will not only inspire us with a sense of duty to our continent, but also transform us lawyers as the beacons of hope in Africa. There are many lawyers across Africa and beyond who do extraordinary work, and some are here today. But driving that renaissance is your collective responsibility. I am optimistic that this conference will go beyond mere exchange of opinions and personal experiences of individual members on some of the contemporary issues facing our continent. It must be a call of action, not just for the African Bar Association, but also for our respective national bar associations and memberships. It was Stephen Covey who once said, "What you do has far greater impact than what you say." Let me conclude by thanking our sister bar association, the Liberian National Bar Association, for taking this bold step to host this year's conference with such elegance and memorable hospitality, especially against the backdrop that it was a rescue mission. Thank you. For a country like Sierra Leone that has never hosted this auspicious conference, this is both motivating and inspiring. Once again, on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone, the Sierra Leone Bar Association, and the Sierra Leone Forum of the African Bar, I wish all of us a successful bar conference, and I hope this 2019 conference will be the carrion call as we begin the arduous journey of driving the African Renaissance. I thank you all.
Sierra Leone Bar Association, we want to kindly urge the speakers coming forward to kindly try to manage time to remain within 2 minutes. We emphasize that because we have to do other things. We call on the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Paul Soro.
President of the Republic of Liberia, ably represented by the Vice President here. For want of time, let me also protocol. The President of Nigerian Bar Association, Paul Soro, was planning to be here with you. Only on Wednesday, something came up, and for the respect and the honor for AFBA, he asked me to represent him. It is with great delight that I bring you warm greetings from the National Executive Committee and the entire members of the Nigerian Bar Association to the members of the African Bar Association at this conference. I most particularly congratulate the President of AFBA and his executive members for the excellent work put in organizing this conference. The role of AFBA, like other lawyer associations, unions and bodies, cannot be overemphasized, as they have remained consistent and resilient in encouraging organized legal practice across the continent. The theme of this year's conference, tackling contemporary issues facing the African continent, how lawyers can drive a renaissance. It is certainly apt, as it is coming at a time when the African continent is being faced with various maligning challenges, ranging from economic, developmental, political, human rights violations, abuse of power, continental trade, settlement of disputes, election issues, and the like. There is therefore a great need for lawyers who are termed as social engineers to drive the desired change of growth and development in Africa. It is very clear that Africa is faced with issues both historical and contemporary. We have gathered here together to discuss on how lawyers can contribute immensely to tackling the area of Africa. That lawyers in Africa must deploy their talents into developmental activities and the role of law in economic development. With the high rise in displacement of persons across the continent, deal with social priorities, whether it's by tackling complex challenges, by protecting refugees or defending prisoners of conscience. There is a need for transparency in what the bar does, so that other organizations can be able to copy. Let me just conclude by urging all law societies and unions in Africa to come together and have a uniform position on the integral rules among other lawyers on what we can do. We must take both steps, not minding who is in charge. We must also look at every issue based on law. I wish us successful deliberations at this conference. The Nigerian Bar will continue at all times to give their support to African Bar Association so that their objectives will be achieved. I thank you and wish you happy deliberations.
Thank you. We are speaking and I put my piece of paper, it means you are out of time. Yeah, so let's get together to avoid that from happening. Try to make your remark in 2 minutes. We're out of time. We want to emphasize that again. At this juncture, we call on Professor John Philpott for his complimentary message. Thank you.
Speak quickly, that doesn't count in my 2 minutes. I refer to Mr. President, who I don't see, and I refer to the protocol of the President of the Liberian Bar Association. This is my third time at an African Bar Conference. I have a great respect for the fierce independence of the African Bar and its executive, who's undertaken many difficult challenges and who's very easy to work with, and I congratulate them for this. I am particularly aware of the visit to Burundi in 2017, where they brought out the truth rather than the stories in the French and European media. I'm very happy with their criticism of Rwanda. And Victoire Ingabiri's attorney is here. I can't see her right now, but they're killing the opposition politicians and putting them in prison. I'm very proud that the President went to the trial of the Catalan leaders in Madrid, where it wasn't the West criticizing Africans. It was Africans who had the dignity to criticize the kangaroo court in Spain. I'm looking forward to the discussions here about terrorism and its patrons who disable the economies and set countries back, and they cannot function. The scourge of terrorism. I'm looking forward to the next 3 days. Thank you very much.
Mesdames et messieurs, It gives me great pleasure at this juncture to invite the podium the United Nations Human Rights Representative here in Liberia. Please welcome Ambassador J. Emeloye for his
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, please permit me to stand on existing protocol. On behalf of the United Nations system in Liberia, and particularly the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, I warmly welcome you to this very important conference and would want to identify what's the theme of the conference. The theme of the conference, if we dissect it, would give us the understanding that lawyers have a great role in the Renaissance. And to do this, I may need to remind you today that there are more lawyers in governance than any other profession. Out of the three arms of government, the lawyers exclusively controls the judiciary. The lawyers, numerically, are higher in the legislature, and most times, higher in the executive. So today, I would urge my colleagues, being a lawyer myself, for us to internalize that we may have failed the people we are supposed to protect. Out of the hierarchy of the arms of government, the judiciary is the last button of the common man. There's a reason for that. The reason for that is a vote of confidence that lawyers will be able to protect when it matters most. I wonder today whether we can stand to that grade that we define when it matters most. I would urge that this meeting, this conference looks at coming to a resolution that lawyers has failed in protecting and promoting and supporting good governance in this continent. This conference calls for what lawyers can do. Lawyers can do a lot. Today, and because of time, let me give you three issues that I think the lawyers can do more effectively. The first one is the issue of corruption. There are casualties arising from corruption in this continent, more than casualties arising from the countries. The international human rights system gives national countries and regions the possibility of redefining human rights issues based on their contemporaries. And I would urge that can Africa begin to look at corruption and elevate it based on its impact to crime against humanity. Lawyers can help in ensuring the enjoyment of human rights in this continent. Today, we are struggling as a continent with economic, social, and cultural rights. Today, as a continent, we are still dependent on donors for immunizations. And we know very well the cost of immunization is less than the cost of aspirin. Finally, migration. Today, Africans are dying in the Mediterranean, and we are allowing other people to shape the narrative. The narrative is not migration. The narrative is not irregular migration. The narrative is a vote of confidence on bad governance in Africa. Our brothers are willing to die because they don't have a refuge in their home countries. And may the Bar Association, African Bar Association, begin to change the narrative and hold people in governance accountable for why people die in the Mediterranean. God bless Africa.
May we quickly then proceed to call the representative of the Chief of Army Staff of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for his good message. Please welcome Major General Y. Shalangwa.
Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, members of the High Table, let me rest on the already established protocol. Well, I'm here to represent the Chief of Army Staff, Nigerian Army, Lieutenant General T.Y. Buratai, who was invited to come and grace this occasion, but due to some commitments, official engagements, he asked me to come and represent him. And of course, he did that knowing very well that Liberia is actually my own home as well. Because I actually served in Liberia 25 years ago. You must have noticed me talking with the Vice President. We were actually neighbors when I was in Liberia, 1994, 1995, 1996. I came as a second lieutenant and I was promoted captain here in Liberia. The Chief of Army Staff has asked me to assure the African Bar Association that his vision is to have a professionally responsive Nigerian Army in the discharge of his constitutional role, and that he relies on the legal services to achieve that vision. And he wants me to assure you that he will continue to respect international humanitarian law. He will continue to respect international human rights law and all other relevant laws in the discharge of his responsibilities as the head of the Nigerian Army. And he has been doing that perfectly well. Time will not allow me to give you the details of what he has been doing. But before I go back to my seat, I want to assure you that the Chief has asked me to let you know that he will continue to support the African Bar Association and all other relevant bodies that will build the capacity of his own officers in the legal department. So he wishes all of us a very successful conference and deliberation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the representative of
Merci, représentant du chef d'état-major,
Major General Y. Shalangwa. It also gives me pleasure
ça me donne le grand président aussi
to invite
au micro
to the podium to make a quick intervention the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Niger Bar Association. Please make your way to the podium quickly.
Sorry, my English is not too fluent, so I try to speak in French. I'm sorry. Ok, bonjour mesdames et messieurs. Excellence Madame la vice-présidente de la République du Liberia, mesdames et messieurs, honorables invités. Et le barreau du Niger est très honoré d'être reçu ce matin à ce pupitre pour prononcer un mot. Et je dois dire que c'est la deuxième participation du Niger à cette conférence. Et je suis particulièrement heureux d'être là parce que je viens d'être à peine élu président du barreau nigérien. Et déjà dans mon programme, je disais que nous devrons avoir une ouverture vers les barreaux anglophones. Et dans mon pays, les avocats ont toujours cru que l'association des barreaux africains est une affaire anglophone. Et j'aimerais bien démentir cela dans mon barreau. Et c'est pour cette raison que j'ai voulu participer à cette conférence pour que je puisse retourner avec des échos assez favorables et convaincre mon barreau de s'unir et d'être derrière moi pour que nous venions massivement dans cette association et retrouver notre place. Et j'ai une annonce à vous faire. Je suis venu avec la ferme intention de vous supplier, de vous convaincre d'être l'hôte de la prochaine conférence l'année prochaine à Niamey, parce que ce serait un grand plaisir pour nous de recevoir tout ce beau monde pour que nous puissions lancer les bases d'une fructueuse collaboration entre barreaux francophones et anglophones, lusophones, arabiques aussi, pour que l'Afrique soit unie dans cette association. Je vous remercie.
We move then quickly to the main keynote speaker.
Okay, nous allons maintenant.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my immense pleasure
j'ai le plaisir
to introduce and invite
de
to the
présenter et d'inviter
Queen's Hanson,
Hanson,
worldwide ambassador of the African Bar Association,
l'ambassadeur mondial du barreau,
former president of the International Criminal Court Bar,
du bar de la Cour pénale internationale.
And currently
il est actuellement
the head of the United Nations investigations into Iran.
de mission des
Iraq.
Nations Unies en Irak.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Mr. Karim Khan, GC.
Karim Khan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Madam Vice President,
Madame la vice-présidente,
Honorable Joel Howard Taylor, representing
honorable Joël,
the President of this Republic,
qui représente le président de la République libérienne,
respected Associate Justices, Attorney General, Minister of
justice
Justice,
associée,
distinguished guests,
les invités,
indeed a pleasure
j'ai le plaisir
to appear before you.
de me tenir
And
devant
whether
vous,
one is Christian or Muslim
que ce
or
soit
Jew
chrétien,
or of no faith,
musulman,
let me start by extending
et
the
permettez-moi de
greeting of
commencer
peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
salutation de paix.
The subject of the talk that I'm asked to give
de la conférence
was, of course, how lawyers could drive a renaissance. And
des avocats
some of you may be forgiven at this time of the day to think, is it how can lawyers get a lunch? The lunch will come. Lunch will come. But it is a challenging topic. Because, of course, how can lawyers drive a renaissance when in so many places they are so unlike? Not the most popular of professions. Since the time of Shakespeare, who of course started with, first of all, let's kill all the lawyers. Viewed very much, I'm afraid, as a necessary evil. Perhaps like dentists, but without the anesthetic. But lawyers, of course, do have a very important role in society, as some of the speakers have already said. The other aspect, of course, that we'll touch upon are what are the contemporary issues. In short, what I will say is, for the African continent, who have struggled and paid such heavy prices for the fight of independence, for the right of sovereignty, for the right of self-determination, that have moved into democracies, the warm-up is over. It is now, we are seeing in different states of Africa, competitive fixtures, in which African states are competing with the rest of the world. So whilst I will come to some of the problems, I don't want to simply regurgitate stereotypes that everything is gloom and doom. That's not the case. One needs to be balanced and to celebrate accomplishments where they take place, in the same way as one needs to criticize constructively, give advice, so that the promise of this continent can be fulfilled. From telecoms to agriculture, environment, textiles, manufacturing, different parts of Africa, different states have made tremendous progress. But the progress is neither uniform, nor complete, nor fair. And within the fragmented nature of development, there are these chasms of despair that need to be properly addressed. Now, the audience is diverse. Of course, we have members, prosecution, defense, we have members of the military. But of course, this African bar is a broad church. We have commercial lawyers, tax lawyers, arbitrators, company lawyers, environmental lawyers. And so, I don't want to focus only on one part of the equation, but as a general comment as to how lawyers can drive a renaissance, it is to highlight to governments and to lawyers themselves that they obviously are part of the solution, or are the key to unlock, one of the keys to unlock the promise of Africa. And whenever there are large, massive in fact, capital projects, infrastructure projects, whenever there is high value transactions, states and governments should avoid the tendency to farm things out completely to international law firms. And to the extent that there is a degree of great speciality, aviation law or space law, I think one of the general advices must be for governments, when they're using taxpayers' dollars into the legal domain, to insist that some African lawyers are part of those teams, so that one can be weaned off every type of dependency to move forward in unity of purpose. The bar, the independent bar, is a key resource for governments. It's been mentioned by the last speakers about lawyers in the judiciary, of course, in government, in all the various executive and legislature. But the resource of the bar should be properly utilized, not only when there's a problem, but to avoid disputes and to ensure progress. What do I mean? I mean that before one enters into a trade discussion, a negotiation, sound out the local bars, the national bars, so that the negotiating position can be as informed as possible. This unity of purpose between the bar and the national government is essential. There has to be some necessary separation of powers in any democracy. But it doesn't mean internal conflict between all people and all parts of the state, all parts of the apparatus, all parts of civil society. So very often we go as lawyers, particularly those from the common law system, the adversarial system, to points of differences, and like gladiators fight it out confrontationally. But that is not the solution to solve the various problems and issues that always arise. A collegiate, collaborative approach must also be used, and that requires both. It requires government to reach out to lawyers, and lawyers willing to give assistance to government. This can be looked at from very many vantage points. But in essence, if I was to say what are some of the, what is the key point at which lawyers can help unlock the potential of the continent, all her treasures of the different cultures, traditions, governments and regions. It is that lawyers must serve. Lawyers must serve. We have the honor of being member of an ancient profession. We have the honor of studying the law that forms its traditions, whether one goes to the common law or the Franco-Germanic law, the civil law, Islamic law, either from canon law, from scripture, from development, from constitutions. One studies comparative law. But the simple reality is that it's very often viewed as some oxymoron when it comes to lawyers. It is not an oxymoron. Love and service are in fact, whether they are fashionable or understood at this moment, are key attributes of lawyers. If we are to ensure that we are not detached spectators, but heart of the society from which we come, servants of justice, officers of the court, seeking to help progress all of us together, instead of just attritional devices that are banging our heads against each other in the courtroom, in which destruction will be left in the wake. Whether it is in this continent, in Liberia, North Africa, East, West or Europe, the simple reality is we're not living in a world with a level playing field. We're not living in a world in which there is equal opportunity. We are not living in a world where even then one of the fundamental principles of the law, the sovereign equality of states, is given life to in practice. The challenge of lawyers with civil society, with government, is in conflict with conscience to translate the promise of constitutional thought and governance into practice. So that the rights guaranteed in constitutions of whatever complexion, of whatever genesis, are rendered not theoretical and illusory, but practical and effective. It was Shakespeare, of course, in King Lear, that stated, through tattered clothes, small vices do appear. Robes, like the beautiful robe I'm wearing, robes and furred gowns hide all. Played sin with gold, and the strong lance of justice hurtless breaks. Arm it with rags, and a pygmy straw doth pierce it. This is an unwelcome truth. But it was as true in my respectful submission at the time of Elizabeth I and Shakespeare. It is as true in London and Moscow as it is in Lagos or Monrovia. So if we as members of an ancient profession wish to move beyond rhetoric, move beyond words and conferences, if we want to deliver as opposed to feel good about ourselves, we need to view our own conduct critically. Look not only to our rights, but to our responsibilities. You know, as I said at the outset, there are many categories of lawyers. Company lawyers, tax lawyers, criminal law as well. Often well paid. But there are other areas of law that are underfunded. Government, of course, has a responsibility. All governments, everywhere in the world, because these are global issues. They are as alive, as contentious in the United States and United Kingdom as they are anywhere else in the world, including Africa or Asia. But one thing is certain, the area of criminal law, the area of housing law, the area of family law is under-resourced, straining at the seams. And conflict after conflict after conflict, we have seen that if the rights of the individual are ignored by those in gowns and robes, with the benefit of luxury and the option of choice, while we look at our wealth, festering discontent rises that leads to conflict. So one of the obligations of lawyers is, whilst we have our practice, is to ensure that we individually and as bars do pro bono work. This is actually a very important aspect if one wishes to be part of a renaissance. Imagine how awful, how rightfully despised it would be a lawyer that would be a doctor, or a nurse, or a midwife, who turns away from a mother who is delivering a baby because she doesn't have money. That doctor, that nurse, has been blessed with education, with a skill that cannot be bartered for a paltry price. There is a duty to serve humanity because humanity is the creation of God and citizens are part of a state. So rather than looking at our rights as lawyers, look at our responsibilities individually and as bars to vindicate the rights of those less fortunate than ourselves. One must eschew corruption. It is a cancer that erodes like hydrochloric acid, corrodes the fabric of confidence in the rule of law. And the rule of law, of course, is the foundation. It is the foundation upon which a state is built. Without that rule of law, without people, citizens, believing that they will not be persecuted, but they will be, their claims will be adjudicated, their grievances will be heard, not based upon the money in their pocket, but on the rights that they possess as human beings and as citizens, there can be no progress, never mind a renaissance. And respect is essential. As I said, the benefit of education that the elite I see in front of me have is something we should be humble about. You know, we are all human beings. We all want to be the best we can be. Myself included, it's normal. That's how society has progressed. That's how the march of civilization has moved forward over the millennia. But I make no apology as a Muslim to have recourse to my own heritage. It was the Prophet of Islam, and all prophets from all religions have this unity of core. But the Prophet of Islam said, the chief of you, the chief amongst you, is he, by she, who is a servant of his or her people. So if we wish to, when we leave this world, this transitory abode, if we wish to be part of the progress of our nations that we were born in or that we have obtained passports and nationality from, we need to be servants and tread with humility. And the issue of tribes is an important one. And again, Sharia law is part of the law in parts of the world. But in Africa or Asia, we see tribes from many different perspectives. The Holy Quran states that God has made tribes as a blessing so we may know different people. This is why the kaleidoscope of colors, the different tribes we have in the continent or even in Liberia are a blessing. But lawyers must, without any hesitation, respect tribes but condemn tribalism. It was 1400 years ago, before the Magna Carta of 1250, before the 1688 Bill of Rights, before these truths were proclaimed self-evident that all men are created equal, that the Prophet of Islam in the desert of Arabia stated, an Arab is not superior to a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab to an Arab. A black is not better than a white, nor a white to a black, except on the basis of good deeds. So lawyers, blessed with learning, often in the dead of night, we have a responsibility in our practice to eschew, to be allergic to cliques, to be against tribalism or fractionalism. We need to be in the highest traditions of our profession, the lawyers that can be the voice of the voiceless, that can stand for those who can't even get off the ground. We as a profession, members of the bar, members of the African bar, must be those lawyers that we look up to in the past, that will force the law to see those that believe and feel that they are invisible. This is a high calling that we have. We need to live up to our responsibilities, not as an option, but as absolute essential part of the legal profession. Not only so that we can drive a renaissance, be part of a renaissance, benefit from a renaissance, but also our profession and those that have come before demand no less. Otherwise, what are we? We're like donkeys carrying books. What are we? Hired hands. Law can be if it's practiced without ethics, if it is practiced without deontology, it can be a profession of scorn. Because one can be viewed as a hired hand, a parrot, for any kind of depraved, perverted, criminal individual. It is the ethics being our compass in the courtroom. It is the ethics being our guide as to how we investigate, how we interact, our duty not to knowingly mislead the court. It elevates this profession from the gutter into the profession of Cicero and others. And whilst so much blood has been spilled in the sad, painful history of humanity, we have seen in this continent lawyers of greatness. In this continent, lawyers of distinction. From all parts of the continent. Just recent ones, forget even going far back. Sir Sidney Kentridge, fighting in the apartheid racist courts of South Africa for Nelson Mandela in the treason trial. You look at the International Court of Justice, the current president, Judge Yusuf from Somalia, Judge Sabatundi from Uganda, Judge Kroma from Sierra Leone. Look at the international tribunal. This is my own small area of law. We have great judges like Hassan Jallow, Chief Justice now of the Gambian, prosecutor of the ICTR. We had a giant from Cameroon. I had the opportunity of working with him. God bless his soul, he passed away last week. Bernard Muna, the first deputy prosecutor of the ICTR. Chief Justice Othman, Chief Justice of Tanzania, Chief of Prosecutions of the ICTR. There are so many. And practitioners, Chief Taku, in all the different courts, flying proudly the flag of the African Bar Association. SFR, Lead Counsel in the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission in Gambia. Charles Jallow in the International Law Commission. In the various CSOs, NGOs, There are people of courage that have stood in the first line, irrespective of the fire that at different times, different governments, different regimes have fought to silence lawyers, that have tried to silence those that would speak out or say something that was not the received wisdom, or even have the temerity in some situations to say, I'm sorry, the emperor wears no clothes. But justice requires not only a compass, but it requires a principle and a discipline of not settling old scores. It can't be tainted, it can't be polluted by self-interest. Governments come and governments go, but justice must continue blind, like Lady Justice herself. Not blind to the facts, but blindfolded to who the petitioner, plaintiff or defendant is. In this country of Liberia, we see partnerships. Of course, we all know how grievously the country suffered during the Civil War. But I know, for example, that organizations like Civitas Maxima have been working closely with Liberian NGOs, like the Global Justice and Research Project, for collaboration, and in order to pursue the quest for accountability. There was beautiful singing as we, in the interlude. And I wondered, in all honesty, what was the point of the interlude at the outset? I thought it's disruptive, and it's what kind of idea was this, Mr. President? And then when I heard them sing, I thought, how wonderful, how apt. Chanting and singing with life, with love of life, about the right to life and the value of human life. So we're not automatons at all. The quest for accountability, the hunger for justice is as real. It is felt as acutely as the hunger pangs that lead to starvation. And I note that in Liberia there's been a very great dynamic discussion that has commenced. The Liberian Council of Churches, the Independent National Human Rights Commission, the National Justice Conference, traditional chiefs, churches, National Economics Dialogue, they have all raised their voice that when life is taken, it is as both the Bible says, the Torah says, and the Holy Quran says, that to kill one is as if to kill all humanity, and to save one soul, one human life, it is as if to save all of humanity. And that's why I was very humbled and delighted, Madam Vice President, that when I was in New York, and I had the privilege in the room of hearing His Excellency the President, Dr. George Weah, speak on the 25th of September, that he gave a very balanced, in my view, an important speech. He noted certain realities. That there had been, for 14 years, conflict in Liberia. There had been peace for 16 years. And the United Nations mission in Liberia had withdrawn for 2 years. And he stated, and I quote, something that I think should resonate, not in this room, but if we think for a moment for those that have lost their lives and their universe has been demolished because of the people that have been targeted or are no more with us. He stated, quote, long after guns have been silenced, survivors have the right to live the survivors have to live with the collateral damage of the war wounded, the shattered families, the displaced populations, the resettlement of refugees, and all other negative consequences. And he made a very valid point that he had been focused upon peace. Because without peace, there is certainly no progress. And there can be no justice, there can be no court without peace. And as a government should do, he stated that this was a listening administration. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. It requires listening, and it is to be applauded. So, the national consultation that the government of Liberia has embarked with is in the same current, in the same stream, in the same direction as those members of the church, the traditional leaders, the NGOs, the international organizations, hold hand in hand together, are trying to navigate a solution so that peace and her companion justice can walk shoulder to shoulder together towards a brighter future. These decisions, of course, are matters of sovereignty. They are matters for the Liberian people. But I can only but commend the fact that this commitment of a collaborative listening approach, arm in arm, has been adopted. And it's quite common that internationals go back to stereotypes. And the reality is, whether we like it or not, those stereotypes are either built with seeds of reality or large doses of racism and prejudice. We see even in football in Europe, England and Hungary, there was demands now for a war on racism. Some prejudices continue to exist. Some countries being good and some being bad. Some being hopeful and some being hopeless. You lawyers are in the we lawyers. I'm with you. We lawyers are in the engine room. We should feel no chagrin. We should feel no lack of determination. We should feel no arrogance that our hands can be dirty with the oil as we try to make the machine of government, the machinery of state, work more smoothly, run more fast, and go further than it has done so far. But the stereotypes of somehow Africa is being dragged by the nose, kicking and screaming as some kind of unwilling participant towards international standards is a deceit. It is an absolute deceit. Because if one looks in this area of law, international justice, after Nuremberg, the real progress, the real leaders have been in Africa. It was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu that helped avoid massive bloodshed after the crime of apartheid was tolerated, facilitated, assisted and committed against millions of South Africans simply because of the color of their skin. The ICTR, the Rwandan Tribunal, was created because Rwanda requested it. The Special Court for Sierra Leone, a wonderful example in an idea of trying to use justice rather than kinetic measures or other measures to get rid of, to bring justice. The ICC, of course, most number of state parties are from the continent of Africa. The Hisenhabri case was an African solution for accountability conducted not in Europe but on the territory of this rich, diverse and blessed continent. And the TRRC in Gambia is another notable example. And the Malabo Protocol that the African Union endorsed to the African Court of Human and People's Rights is another example. It has massive potential. That court has managed to develop some impressive jurisprudence that is being referred to internationally. But accessibility, of course, has to be widened. It can't be static. The President knows football very well. One of the world's greatest ever. Yet you know, if you're static, others overtake. I don't need to mention Manchester United, but one overtakes. Progress requires constant perseverance and constant improvement. But even the continent has been moving with other models, other legal frameworks that can help solve legal disputes peacefully. One of the principal reasons why we have the United Nations. Pacific settlements of disputes. Law, not war. An example, of course, is CIMAC, ECOWAS, SADC. And those are to be commended. But as lawyers and as executive, sometimes what we lack is not academic brilliance, it's not learning or information. It is something much more ethereal. It's imagination. So the imagination of those existing structures, CIMAC, ECOWAS and SADC, have the potential if the member states of the African Union and those regional organizations determine it to be in their national, regional and continental interest to widen it, so that other African states, not from those organs, can also use those institutions for the Pacific settlement of disputes. Terrorism is a blight on the body of humanity. And of course, everything I say is in my private capacity. But as the head of the investigative team and special advisor to promote accountability for Daesh, I have a mandate also to promote throughout the world accountability for Daesh crimes. And I had the pleasure of seeing the President of Niger and signing a cooperation agreement with Niger. Because Daesh and ISIL is not limited to Iraq or Syria. It's not limited even to Afghanistan or the Central Asian republics, or even to Sri Lanka, where we've seen horrendous acts on Easter of this year. We see it in North Africa, in Libya, we see it in Niger, we see it in Mali, we see it in Burkina Faso. The G5 is suffering greatly with intolerance, with the un-Islamic state, Daesh. And we see also Boko Haram, we see Al-Shabaab. Military solutions cannot solve the problems of ideology. There may well be some that are so toxic, that are so far progressed on hurting the soul of humanity, the most vulnerable in humanity, that there may be a call for and a need for other measures. But certainly, proper, fair investigations and prosecutions are absolutely essential for a number of reasons. Because one of the lessons of Nuremberg wasn't that only the bad guys were prosecuted, but trials based upon evidence created a record that was seen to be fair. And when one is dealing with an ideologically based organization, and the ideology is fueling the criminal group, the ideology needs to be frozen and then dissected in the full glare of the public, so that it can be debunked. And in the same way that the crimes of the Nazis and fascism as an ideology was dissected in Nuremberg, so acts of terror, whatever the alleged justification, should be properly met with the strong, peaceful sword of the law, not only because it promotes normative human rights values, but because we've seen it stand the test of time. It prevents creating martyrs. It prevents revisionism. It exposes and therefore can facilitate an environment that is much less conducive to other, largely young men, also young women, becoming somehow enamored with a very pernicious ideology. And when people are convinced that the law can serve a purpose, they're going to be much less likely to go to violence. So these are large, big issues that lawyers have a part to play in. Bar associations, Mr. President, national and regional, have an important part to play. Because the world we've seen has been spoken about ad nauseum is a global village. We're all interconnected and so are bars. So by raising standards, by working together, by creating synergies, by learning without ego about best practice, we can collectively help create an environment where a great African renaissance is possible. Bar associations must always be cautious of being hijacked by vested interest, by political groups, by highly motivated cliques that then use a pulpit not to serve the public good or even to serve the good of the profession, but to serve an agenda which then gives room for government then to attack the whole profession itself. So as Spider-Man said, with power comes responsibilities. We should bear that in mind also. I won't say I had more to say, but I know I'm going on a little bit. But the issue of refugees is an important one, and again, here we can't be spectators. These are big issues, population movements. People that are also benefiting. Traffickers. And all the time people are making money out of refugee movements, out of trafficking, like groups make money and get rich out of conflict and war. Lawyers cannot be like a firefighter who is standing by a hosepipe and refusing even to turn on the tap. So we should feel that sense of empowerment that we can actually solve problems. We can help together protect the rights and interests of the states that we belong to, of the institutions that govern the states. We can help protect the rights of citizens, of individuals, of vulnerable. We can help companies. So there's more investment and more financial means of people to lift themselves up. And of course, the environment. It was John F. Kennedy that you all know very well that said, think not what your country can do for you, but think what you can do for your country. So the same applies today, members of the African Bar, members of the military, distinguished guests. If we as a legal profession are to drive a renaissance, we must let loose this unworthy thought. What can the continent do for us? But we must think what we can do for the continent. If we, with love in our heart for humanity, for love in our heart for the law, wish this great continent to fulfill its potential, we must be willing, we must be enthusiastic indeed, to bear the fatigue, the exhaustion, the perspiration, the effort of working to make that a reality. I applaud all you members of the African Bar Association, of which I of course consider myself honored to to be a part.
Je suis honoré
I
d'en
thank
faire
very
partie.
much members of the Liberia Bar for the
Je
astonishing
remercie
effort
les membres
that has been
du
put
barreau
in to
libérien
make this a success.
que
I commend
cette
Madam Vice President, the government of Liberia,
soit réussite.
for extending every courtesy to the
Merci au
President of the
gouvernement
African
libérien.
Bar to allow us I pray that this ministerial complex, which is world
Ce
class,
complexe ministériel
can be filled not only with people,
soit rempli non seulement avec
but
des
with
gens, mais
principle,
avec des principes,
with imagination, with belief, with courage. And then together we may have a renaissance for Liberia, a renaissance for the continent, of which when we are gone, we'll be proud to have played a small part. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful thank you, Mr. Karikan, for all the things, all the nuggets of wisdom that have filled your speech to us this afternoon. He has told us to look not only to our rights but to our responsibilities as one of the ways in which we can make a renaissance. He has encouraged us to take up pro bono work, those of us in private practice. He has also called for us to reject tribalism, even though we respect tribes. He has reminded us of ethics in the legal profession and its important role. Ethics, like equity, is the gloss on the lawyer's profession. Equity is the gloss on common law. Ethics, the gloss on the legal profession. He has also encouraged us not to think of our efforts in Africa as poor. To use his language, it's a deceit that Africa has or is being dragged willy-nilly to international standards. Africa is at the forefront, and he cited examples reminding us. He's challenged us to use our imagination to make all the institutions that we have work. For example, the cause of ECOWAS and SADC. And lastly, to ask not what the continent can do for us, but what we can do for the continent. Please, another round of applause for Mr. May I then, ladies and gentlemen, invite the Chief of Protocol to introduce the Vice President.
Your Honor, Justice Bulukoli, and all associate members of the Supreme Court of Liberia, members of the National Legislature present, Minister of Justice, and all officials of government present, the doyen and members of the diplomatic corps and international organizations, Mr. President, and members of the Bar Association of Africa, Mr. President, and members of the Bar Association of Liberia, Mr. Karim Khan, QC, the keynote speaker, all the platform guests, our honorees, invited guests, members of the Fourth Estate. I am pleased to invite the first female Vice President of Liberia, who happens to be a lawyer, for remarks and official opening of the conference. Chief Dr. Joa Howard, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia.
Please have your seats. Please. Excellencies, representative of the Chief Justice, members of the Supreme Court Bar, our special guests of honor, the Speaker, the President of the African Bar Association and its members, the President of the Liberia Bar Association and its members, the doyen members of the Diplomatic Corps. Permit me to stand on existing protocols. It's a very, very, very beautiful afternoon for me. I hope you feel the same. To God be the glory for indeed great things He has done. This afternoon I bring you greetings from His Excellency President George Manawia, President of the Republic of Liberia, and our government, to all of our visitors who've come from far and near, and to our guest speaker, who have come to join the Liberian Bar Association for this important event. He asked me to extend to the President and members of the African Bar Association our gratitude as a nation for Liberia being chosen as the country to host the 2019 African Bar Annual Conference. Another theme, tackling contemporary issues facing the African continent and how lawyers can drive the new renaissance that we need. A lot has been said this afternoon, but I believe you've gathered from far and wide to look at your profession, to ensure that prevailing laws continue to provide a balance, and that rules of conflict, especially during these difficult times, are upheld, and that lawyers must remain tools for true justice. But the issue for your sitting, I believe, is not about who's right and who's wrong, which most times is the debate.